Om Bhadram Karnephih Shunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Stushtuvam Sastanubhihi Vyasema Devahidam Yadayuh Sustina Indro Vruddhasavaha Sustina Pusha Vishavedaha Sustina Starksho Arishtanemihi Sustino Brihaspadiel Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, in the last class, we were dealing with the 10th verse of the 4th chapter of this work, Gaudapada's Karika. And in this 10th verse, we already saw that Gaudapada wants to drive home the central idea of Vedanta, that we are by our very nature perfect, conscious. We are of the nature of the absolute knowledge, existence and bliss. The special feature of Vedanta as a philosophical system. The essence of this philosophy is this. It's not a philosophy, it's a spiritual ideal. That we are by our very nature divine. This idea behind. Everything else is foreign to us. So, this realization, this spiritual enlightenment is not something that we achieve, that we acquire, that we get as a result of our spiritual practices. It is our true nature. As I said in the illustration, when you see a dark object lying on the table in a semi-dark room, you mistake that object to be something else. If that object is somewhat long and curved in shape, we may perhaps mistake that piece of rope for a snake or a piece of curved stick or a crack on the floor and so on. When we bring light, the light removes darkness, and when darkness is removed, the true nature of that object is revealed. Now, in this illustration, it is not light that reveals the rope. The light's function stops with removing darkness. The fact that it is a piece of rope is a self-evident fact. When the darkness which was responsible, which was the cause of misunderstanding, is removed, then the obstacle in our way of realizing the true nature of that object is also removed. Then the fact that it is a piece of rope is self-revealed. Similarly, as I said in the last class, Swami Vivekananda's ideal is that we have hypnotized ourselves. We have deluded ourselves into thinking that we are not Atman. And when we delude ourselves, when we hypnotize ourselves into thinking that we are not Atman, we are not divine by our nature, then we mistake, we superimpose the wrong notion on ourselves. Then we begin to think that we are this body. If we identify ourselves with this body, then even the smallest of bodily problems will become a great dilemma, a mighty big problem. If somebody dies, somebody with whom we have blood relationship, a relationship because of this psychophysical mechanism, then we are depressed, we become sad, we become shocked. So anything that upsets the mind, upsets the body, becomes a terrible dilemma. If we identify ourselves with this mind, then an unhappy, unpleasant event becomes a most intolerable, unbearable dilemma. So very often in actual life, we are what we think we are. For all practical purposes, we are what we think we are. If we think we are this body, then we are actually not very different from a tree or an animal. An animal is born, it also needs food, it needs shelter from the rains and heat, sunlight. When it starts raining, an animal runs away and takes shelter under a shade or a tree or whatever. But human beings have some other equipment, psychological equipment. He builds a home, a permanent shelter. So if we think we are this body, then we are not very different from the animals. In fact, the real line of demarcation between mankind and the animal kingdom is very thin. The distinction between a human being and animal is this. A human being can just stand apart from this instinctive flow of evolution and ask the question, who am I? What's the meaning of this life? What's my true nature? Am I this body? Or am I this mind, intellect? We cannot even think that we are intellect, because intellect is by its very nature wavering, changing. So anything which changes, anything which wavers cannot be eternal. So man or woman, human beings alone have this faculty to stand away from the instinctive flow of emotions and thinking and ask the question, who am I? What am I? What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of, what's the mystery of life and death, and so on. Animals cannot do. Animals are part of this instinctive, unconscious flow of life. Human beings alone can ask this question. We are, in the 11th verse, we are going to discuss a very deep metaphysical topic that is very prominent in Indian philosophy. Some of the disputations between the school of Sankhyas, the school of evolutionists, and other schools of philosophy. Just before entering that subject, we are dealing with some of the important implications of the 10th verse. So as I said, human beings alone possess this faculty for self-analysis, for asking the question, who am I, what am I, what's the meaning of life, what's the mystery of life and death. In fact, there is a very interesting story narrated in one of our most important devotional classics. The name of the work is Srimad Bhagavata Purana. The author is Vyasa. The story is very touching. In fact, that story has got a great relevance in understanding the true implications of the 10th verse, because the 10th verse says that we are by our very nature, Swabhavataha Sarve Dharmaha Jara Marana Nirmuktaha. This is the prose order. By our very nature, we are perfect. We are beyond birth and death, which means there was never a time when we did not exist, so we are not born. And there will never be a time when we will not exist, so we will never die. We are immortal reality. But still, people think that we are all psychophysical mechanisms which take birth at one point of time in the past, live for some time, for some years, and vanish at some point of time in future. Now, in this classic, there's an interesting incident. In fact, the whole text is an exposition of a great spiritual truth. The topic of discussion is the mystery of life and death. The story is this: there was a great king in ancient times. His name was Parikshit. He was a descendant of the great character in the Bhagavad Gita. The student of Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna. So, Parikshit was the name of this great emperor. He was very famous. He had a great reputation as a noble, efficient administrator, as a very good king. But something happened in his life. Sometimes, in some unguarded movements, we happen to commit some deeds which may perhaps become the cause of endless miseries in our life. This is the story. So this Parikshit one day went about hunting animals, wild animals in the forests. He got hungry and thirsty, and when you get hungry, you become angry. So he entered a hermitage. In that hermitage, there was a great sage who was sitting immersed in meditation. So normally the king expects, when he enters a place, he will expect hospitality. So this great sage was sitting deeply immersed in meditation. Normally he was famous as a great king who will never do anything sinful. But it so happened that the king, because of his hunger and maybe annoyance, he felt this sage was pretending to be immersed in meditation. He didn't get up. He did not show any hospitality. So maybe to test him, he looked around and he found a dead snake lying about. He took that snake with his bow and put it around the neck of this great sage and went his way. After some time, this sage's son came, and the son found that his father was sitting deeply immersed in meditation, unconscious of the external world, and a dead snake around his neck. So the son got angry. He felt somebody had come and insulted his revered father. And the story goes like this. There's a great myth. The story is part mythological, part philosophical, and much more important than it contains a great spiritual and ethical truth. So this boy went round. He took some drops of water from the nearby river, and he cursed this king. He didn't know who did that, but anybody, whoever it may be, who has committed such a heinous sinful act, will die of snake bite. That was the curse. Now, after some time, this sage opened his eyes, and the son told him what happened. The sage was very much upset, because though he knew the king had committed a very heinous crime, sinful deed, still, as a great sage, he felt it was very wrong on his son's part, on the part of his son, to have cursed the king who had such high reputation. Anyhow, the point is, that's not an important point. Now the story enters another chapter. Now there is another episode. the sage sent his messengers to the king. By mistake, my son had cursed you, and my son is endowed with so much of spiritual power. So his word will come true. So on the seventh day, you will die. You will be beaten by a mighty snake. Takshaka is the king. Now, when the king heard about this curse, he didn't get angry. He did not want to punish the king. He said, well, I am the descendant of the great disciple of Lord Krishna himself. He was a descendant of Arjuna. So he said, for my sinful deed, I deserve this fate. And what he did, now what will we do when we come to know that we have just about 7 days to live? What will normal human beings do? Some people will withdraw all the money from the bank and will go to Las Vegas or Hawaii, or maybe go and stay in a 5-star hotel and squander away the money. Some people will go mad. Some rare people will think of what will happen to me after this life. This is a sign of wisdom. In fact, the ability to look beyond the present, beyond today, beyond the visible, beyond the empirical, is the real sign of wisdom. There's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence is not necessarily a gift. Sometimes intelligence can be a curse. Some of the greatest scourges of humanity were very intelligent. Hitler, Genghis Khan, many like that. Some of the worst villains of world history were extremely intelligent. Their IQ will be above 120. That means they belong to the brilliant category, mind you. So, but then they were not wise. The ability to think beyond the present, beyond the empirical, and to think something about the transcendental is the real sign of wisdom. So the king understood that he had committed a sinful act and he got something which he deserved. He could have easily punished that sage or his son, but he never did that. He said, well, I got what I deserved. What he did, he distributed all his wealth. He renounced his kingdom, his comforts, his palace, everything. And he decided to go to Ganga. It's called Mahaprasthanam, the great movement towards Ganga. He reached the banks of Ganga, which is a holy river, the holiest river according to Vedantic tradition. He went there and he decided he will spend the rest of his lifetime. It means 7 into 24 into 60 minutes. That's his life. He didn't get angry. He did not become anxious. He was not worried. In fact, that revealed to him the transitoriness of physical life and the reality of the transcendental reality, Atman. So he renounced his kingdom, his comforts, everything, and left behind all that normal human beings will aspire for. And he reached the banks of Ganga. So when the great wise men of those days, the great saints and sages, came to know of what this great king had done, when he came to know that he was cursed, he was destined to die on the 7th day, instead of becoming worried, he, with a smile in his face, he renounced his kingdom and comforts, decided to spend the rest of his lifetime on contemplation on God. For this purpose, he has come to the banks of Ganga and is spending his lifetime in contemplation. So all the great sages of those days were eager to see such a noble king. Among them, there was a great saint. His name was Shuka. He was the greatest saint of those days. Incidentally, he was the son of the author of Bhagavata Purana, Vyasa. So, when King Parikshit found out that the great Shuka, the great saint, sage Shuka himself, had come to meet him, to bless him. It is a wonderful thing, because when a mighty emperor came to know that a poor old hermit, an ascetic living in a forest hermitage, had cursed him, instead of getting angry, instead of trying to punish this king, just imagine what Henry VIII did to Thomas Becket. Just imagine. Because the man, the great, he didn't get support from the clergy for his marriage. He blotted out the entire clerical line. So just imagine, compare King Parikshit with Henry VIII. So, King Parikshit, instead of getting angry, instead of becoming vindictive, took this curse as a blessing. Because if he did not get this curse from a saint, he would have perhaps spent the rest of his lifetime indulging in kingly comforts. But this curse became a blessing, because the curse revealed to him the transitoriness of physical pleasures, including this body, and revealed to him the reality of spiritual liberation. So, when he heard that great Shuka himself had come to the banks of Ganga, he asked one question to Shuka. Atha prichami samsiddhim yoginam paramam gurum purusha sehayat karyam mriyamanasya sarvatha. This is the question, a very interesting question. The question is this. Atha prichami samsiddhim yoginam paramam gurum. You are the guru of yogis. You are the teacher of all the great yogis. You are the supreme teacher of spiritual teachers. I am trying to ask you one question. Atha prichami samsiddhim yoginam paramam gurum purusasyeha yat karyam mriyamanasya sarvata. Mriyamanasya means somebody who is about to die. A person on whom death is staring at his face. He knows that he will die very soon. What should such a man, such a woman do? What should a person whom death is staring at his face or at her face do? Should he get angry? Should he get worried? If you believe that you have only one life, well, you'll be terribly upset, because you don't know what is going to happen. If you think you are only this psychophysical mechanism, well, with this body, everything comes to an end. If everything comes to an end with this body, if life is a full stop, if death is a full stop, then people will be terribly upset. Death becomes a terrifying experience. But if you believe that death is only a semicolon or a comma, even after death something continues to exist, then death becomes only creative crisis. It is a crisis, but it is not a terrible thing. It is not a terrifying experience. It is something that we can take in our stride. So what should such a person do? Then he continues his question. The questions are this: Kim srodavyam, kim japyam, kim smartavyam, bhajaneyam, etc. What should he do? Whom he should meditate upon? Whom should he worship? What sacred mantra should he repeat? How he should worship the Lord? And then he doesn't stop there. The second part of the question is more important. Bruhi yadva viparyayam. That is the second part of the question. What he should not do. So you see, the question which Parikshit asked had two parts. One question, the first verse says, what should a dying person do? Second question is, whom should he worship? Whom he should meditate upon? What he should contemplate upon? What should he think And then a much more important question, what he should not do. Bruhi yadva viparyam, that is the Sanskrit verse. What he should not do. In answer to this question, Shuka begins a long exposition of the great teachings of Lord Krishna and also his whole life. In fact, the whole Bhagavata Purana is nothing but an answer to the question, what should a dying person do, and what he should not do. Now, this is how the first chapter of this classic ends. In the second chapter, it's called second skandha, means second part, second book you may call. So the great sage, you know what he does? He doesn't deal with the first part of the question. He doesn't say what you should do. He begins his answer with long description of what a dying man should not do. What a person who knows that he or she is going to die should not do. Then he gives a long description how people thinking that they are only these physical bodies. The whole business of life is nothing but enjoyment of physical pleasures. They waste their whole existence enjoying natural pleasures. But the wise person should realize the transitoriness of these empirical things and should concentrate his mind on the higher spiritual truth. And this is possible by the practice of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, or jnana yoga. So, etavan sankhya yoga abhyam sudharma parinishthaya janma labha parapumsam ante narayana smriti. This is the central piece of the answer. The answer is ante narayana smriti. When you die, you should be able to leave this world with a smile on your face, with the name of the Lord in your mind. That should be the supreme goal of human life, human existence. This is possible through Jnana Marga. Sankhya here means not Sankhya philosophy, but Sankhya Jnana Marga. You can analyze philosophically, you can analyze. If you look around, you find everything in this world comes and goes, undergoes change, is in a flux. Behind this changing phenomena, there is the unchanging supreme truth. That is, you may call him God if you follow the path of bhakti, devotion, or you may call Atman if you follow the path of knowledge. Or you can practice karma yoga, you can follow the path of disinterested action. Perform your duties and responsibilities as an act of worship of the Lord. Then every act becomes an act of worship, every thought becomes meditation, whole life becomes spiritual. The secular and spiritual both merge into one. You can spiritualize your whole existence. These are the paths that one can adopt according to your temperament. Then you can leave this world with a smile on your face. So, ante narayana smriti. This is the answer which Shuka gives. Now, in the 10th verse, you find those who believe that they are by the very nature inherently divine, they can contemplate on that reality. And if they do that, they can live a very happy, intelligent life. And they can leave this world with a smile on their face. This is the answer. In the 11th verse, Gaudapada is entering a very interesting topic. It's a bit academic, a bit pedantic, but we can't help it. As I said on numerous occasions, in this text, Gaudapada deals with the different systems of Indian philosophy, not only the 6 systems of atheistic philosophy like Mimamsa, Vedanta, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, and Sankhya and Yoga, and also the 6 systems of Buddhist philosophy, Sautrantika, Vaibhashika, Vijnanavada, Shunyavada, and also Jaina philosophy and Charvaka, I mean the Indian materialism. All the 12 systems of Indian philosophical tradition are dealt with here. Now, the 12th verse is this: Karanam yasya vaikaryam karanam tasya jayati jayamanam kathamajam bhinnam nityam katham chatat. The idea is this. In fact, in this verse, Gaudapada is dealing with 2 schools of ancient Indian philosophy. The one is the philosophy of Sankhya, which was expounded by the great teachers Kapila and Ishvara Krishna in later centuries. And the other school of philosophy that is dealt with in this verse is the Vaisheshika philosophy of the great sage Kanada. These are the 2 schools of philosophy which are dealt with in this 11th verse. Now, this verse deals with the concept of creation. 2 schools of creation. Now, remember, both these schools are different from Vedanta. Gaudapada, the author of this Karika, is bringing out the inherent contradictions between different systems of non-Advaitic philosophical traditions. The disharmony among the philosophers who are not in agreement with the views of Advaitins. Because Advaita teaches that the reality is one, it is Atman as the immanent reality within, it is Brahman which is the all-pervading omnipresent reality, it is a transcendental reality, it is eternal, immortal, it's our true nature. All these ideas we already described in the last class. Now, the first school of philosophy is the philosophy of Sankhya. This Sankhya philosophy believes in evolution. The great philosopher, the great exponent of this system of philosophy was Kapila. You have to think of the early 3rd millennium, because Kapila flourished in the 3rd millennium BC, and it is said that Kapila's system influenced many of the ancient pre-Socratean systems of Greek thought, like Thales, Anaxagoras, Heraclitus. Heraclitus was a contemporary of Gautama Buddha in India. So many of their systems of philosophy were influenced by the Sankhya system. That's the view of many scholars in comparative philosophy. See, Thales, the 7th century Greek philosopher, he believed that water is the one fundamental substance, is the eternal, is the fundamental stuff of the world. So many of these ideas were influenced by the Sankhya system. Now, Sankhyas believe in evolution. They believe that there are 2 fundamental absolute categories in the world. One is Purusha, the other is Prakriti. Purusha is conscious but inactive. The other is Prakriti, sometimes called Pradhanam. It is unconscious but it is active. They believe that whole creation, the entire universe, is an evolute of Prakriti or Pradhanam. And not only that, they believe that this Prakriti or Pradhanam is eternal. That's why Gaudapada is trying to bring out some of the inherent contradictions of this old Sankhya system of philosophy. See, they believe that Prakriti or Pradhanam is eternal. And they also argue that whole creation evolves out of Prakriti. Because they believe from Prakriti buddhi or mahatattva evolves, the cosmic intelligence. From that, the three ego systems, ahankara, which divided into sattviga ahankara, rajasiga ahankara, and tamasiga ahankara. From sattviga ahankara, mind evolves. From rajasiga ahankara, the five senses of perception, five senses of action, karmendriyani, jnanendriyani. From tamasiga ahankara, five subtle elements, panchatanmatras, and from five subtle elements, five gross elements, and the entire empirical phenomena evolves out of this prakriti. Now there is a great contradiction in this. That's what is being brought out here. As I said on innumerable occasions earlier, Gaudapada sometimes he brings out the internal inherent contradictions in non-Advaitic systems of philosophy, because non-Advaitic systems try to establish that the reality is pluralistic and dualistic, and sometimes endowed with names and forms and attributes. But Advaitins try to establish that the supreme reality is an attributeless, impersonal, absolute Brahman or consciousness. So here there are a few contradictions. They believe the whole creation is an evolute of this Prakriti or Pradhana. And they also believe that this Prakriti is eternal, immortal. How can Prakriti become the cause of the universe? How can the universe evolve out of Prakriti if Prakriti is eternal? Because evolving means changing. See, for example, when you make yogurt or curds from milk, the milk undergoes change and becomes maybe buttermilk or yogurt or whatever it is. So it undergoes. So you can't say milk is eternal. If you say milk is eternal, then milk should remain the same without any change. But milk becomes yogurt or curds or buttermilk or things like that. So there is an inherent contradiction. Second contradiction is Prakriti, according to them, is unconscious. How can an unconscious substance become the cause of the evolution of this universe? Now, these contradictions are brought out by another school of philosophy. It's called the ancient Indian atomist. It's called Vaisheshika philosophy. Its great exponent was Kanada, who was a great sage. These are all great sages, saints and sages. Kabila was a great saint. Kanada was a great saint. So, according to Sankhya, the effect is already pre-existing in cause. Through evolution, the cause becomes the effect. In other words, yogurt or curds or buttermilk pre-exist in milk. That's why we are able to convert milk into buttermilk. The tree pre-exists in the seed. It's a mango tree. Pre-exists in the mango. That's why the tree evolves out of mango. This is their theory, through evolution. So they are called ancient evolutionists. Now, as I said, according to them, the effect pre-exists in cause. Sometimes this view is called Satkaryavada, which means the effect already exists. Sat means in cause. Just as the mango tree pre-exists in the mango. Now there is another school of philosophy. There are 6 systems of theism. The other school is Vaisheshika. As I said, they are called ancient atomists. It's called the school of atomism because they believe the entire creation, the whole universe consists of atoms. Some of their doctrines are seriously studied by modern philosophers because you get a glimpse into the concepts of quark, some of the minutest possible units from which the entire universe is created. Such ideas are found in the works of these Vaisheshika philosophers. But that's not a topic in front of us. So, according to this Vaisheshika school of philosophy, the ancient Indian atomists, everything in this world is a new creation. It is called the school of the Ulpattivada. Means they believe that anything that comes into existence is a new entity. It has got a separate ontological existence. For example, I shall give the example. According to these Vaisheshika philosophers, we may sometimes laugh at them. They believe that the cloth has no relationship at all with the threads, cotton threads, out of which the cloth is made. Or the pot has nothing to do, no relation at all with the clay out of which the pots or pans are made. Or let us say, a golden necklace has no relation at all with the gold from which these ornaments are made. You know, there is a reason. They give their own reasons. They believe there is a reason for it. See, when to understand their philosophy, I should give the opposite view. Then only we understand their system. According to those who believe that effect pre-exists in cause, the cause itself becomes the effect. But there is an inseparable relationship between the thread and the cloth that you are wearing, between the pot and the clay out of which the pot is made. According to Sankhya philosophers, they believe in evolution. They believe that the gold evolves into the ornament, the clay evolves into the clay pots and glasses and clay utensils, and the threads evolves into cloth. But there is an inherent, inseparable relationship. It's called Samavai Karana. Samavai Sambandha it is called. Inseparable relationship between the thread and the cloth. That's very logical. Because you try to remove all the threads from your cloth, there will be no cloth for you to wear. You try to remove all the gold from your golden necklace, there will be no necklace left. So it's perfectly understandable. But the Vaisheshikas argue the other way. They say that the golden necklace has no connection with the gold. Gold is here, what is called, it is called Upadana Karana, and sometimes in Aristotle's language it is called material cause. Aristotle speaks of efficient cause, formal cause, material cause, and final cause. Material cause is sometimes called, in Indian tradition, is called Upadana Karana. So, even according to Aristotle, material cause is nothing but the constituents in the effect. See, for example, a mud pot is the effect. Material cause is the mud out of which that mud pot is made. Cloth is the, or cloth or shirt, whatever, a cloth is the effect. Threads is the material cause, according to Aristotle. It's called Upadana Karanam in Indian logic. So, according to Aristotle and also according to his predecessors, Sankhyas, there is an inseparable relationship between the material cause and effect. But Vaisheshikas argue the other way. They have their own logic. They say there is no relationship at all between the cloth and the thread. Why? Because you don't wear threads. So there is a difference with regard to utility. You cannot wear threads. Golden biscuits you won't tie in your neck. You have to convert gold biscuits into an ornament. Then only you will tie. you will put on your, you don't tie a gold biscuit on your neck unless you want to become butts of ridicule. So, according to Vaisheshikas, there is Buddhi Veda, means, and Vyavahara Veda. You don't use threads for those purposes for which you use clothes. So, there is Vyavahara Veda, means difference with regard to practical utility. And also, when you look upon the thread, you don't see the same object which you see when you look upon cloth. When you look upon thread, you see threads. You know it is thread. When you look upon clothes which are made from the same thread, you have a different approach. So Buddhi Veda is there. Then again, threads are innumerable number. The cloth is only one. So that's also one difference. And then shape. Threads may be long threads, but cloth has a definite shape, well structured, well defined shape and size, etc. So according to Vaisheshika, Buddhi Veda, Shabda Veda, Karya Veda, Sankhya Veda, Agriti Veda. So many differences. You don't, suppose you go to a shop, you don't ask for threads, you ask for clothes. So names are different, utility is different, color is different, number is different, your whole attitude is different. Therefore, cloth is entirely different from the threads. That is their view. Now, Gaudapada is using a technique. He says, both these people are absolutely wrong. Because Vaisheshikas refute the views of Sankhyas, and Sankhyas refute the views of Vaisheshikas. So what is the reality? He says, in reality, all these material things are nothing but changing names and forms. And anything which is of a changing nature, with names and forms, are all relative, which Vedantins call Vyavaharika Sattva. They do not have the status, the ontological status of absolute reality. So these ideas are brought here. So Gaudapada says, this Atman, which is present in all of us, it is different and distinct from the psychophysical mechanism, which are only expressions which are only vehicles for expressing, for manifestation of this Atman. The Atman is immanent in all beings. It is all-pervading and omnipresent. It is a transcendental reality. Everything else other than the Atman is only relative. They come and they go. They come into existence sometime in the past. They live for some time, they grow, they evolve, they slowly start decaying, and then they die out. So jayate asti vardhade viparinamade kshiyate nasyati. Everything in this world except Atman, except consciousness, except the self, the soul, is subject to the 6 changes. They come into existence because birth, it is called. Birth is nothing but a transition from a state of non-existence into a state of existence. Then they exist, they grow, they evolve, then they decay and they die out. Everything in this world, including the stars, the Milky Ways, the galaxies, they may be living, they may be existing for some millions or billions of years. Still, they are within the framework of time. So they are relative. And anything which is within the canvas of time, which belongs to the realm of time, which is divided artificially into past, present and future, is relative. It is not absolute. It comes and it goes. An insect may come, live for a few seconds and vanish. The earth may exist maybe for several millions of years, or the universe for several billions of years. But still they are not eternal. They all belong to the realm of the relative. Atman alone is the only reality. This Atman is never born because Atman always exists. And Atman never dies because it always exists. So, this Atman is the supreme reality. This is Gaudapada's view. In order to project this Advaitic view, he is bringing out some of the contradictions of non-Advaitic systems of philosophy. So an example is found in the 11th verse. Now we have just about 5 minutes. If any of you would like to ask any question on this subject, we can ask. Then we'll conclude. 5 minutes we have got. Anyway. Anything related to these topics, Indian philosophy? Yes.
Going back to the beginning of the class, you were talking about the dying person. If the dying person doesn't have their faculties under control, let's say they're in a comatose state, how can the people around them, what can they do? We're talking spiritual things.
Oh, yes. Normally, people around a dying person should recite from some holy books. They can read, they can recite, they can do japa, because we don't know whether the person is hearing or not. It is said, in this Vedantic view, it is said, the sum total of all that we have done, we have thought, will come to our mind in subtle form at the time of death, because at the time of death, mind is completely in a state of total helplessness. So whatever is natural to us will express itself. So from the standpoint of the dying person, he should try to cultivate thoughts, spiritual thoughts, by reading, by spiritual practice, by contemplation. And for those who are surrounding him, should try to help him to recollect these thoughts by reading books, by reciting things. There's a great story in the same book. There was a character, Ajamila. This man, during his early days, it's called Ajamilo Vakyanam, the story of Ajamila. A very famous story. This man, he led a very pious life during his early days. He was born in a good family. His parents brought him up with great devotion. But then when he became a young man, he had a fall. He had a complete deviation from the path of righteousness. He became a profligate, a rogue, a scourge, means a curse to his parents. Of course, I need not I don't want to narrate all the evil things that he did, including what he did to his own parents. Now, at the time of death, something happened. He had a son, and his son's name was Narayana, which happens to be the name of Lord Vishnu, who is one of the Godheads in Hindu tradition. So anybody who hears the name of Narayana, unless he is a terrible sinner, he may perhaps think of God Narayana, Lord Narayana. So, but he perhaps didn't intend to take the name of God. He called his son. His son's name happened to be Narayana. Now, when he called his son's name, suddenly his mind went back to his early days. During his early part of his life, when he was a boy, he was brought up as a pious young boy, and he used to do a lot of spiritual practices, including worshipping Lord Narayana, reciting God's name. Narayana is one of the synonyms of Lord Vishnu. So when he called, without intention, really speaking, he called his son, but somehow his mind went back to his early days, during which he was a devotee of Narayana. So the early thoughts came back to the surface of his mind. And his mind dwelt on this topic, on this idea, the memory of Lord. Now, according to mythological beliefs, when a person dies, if he's a sinner, the Satan's agents, maybe Yama's agents, will come here to take him to hell. If he's a saintly person, a devotee of God, Vishnu's lieutenants, assistants will come and take him to the world of Lord Vishnu. So, when his mind suddenly dwelt on the thought of Narayana, the name of Lord Vishnu, accidentally, Vishnu's lieutenants came. They drove away those who came there to drag him to hell. And there is a long conversation between these two people. Not a group of people who came to drag him to hell, who were driven away by Lord Vishnu's, God's servants, who came to take him to heaven, Vishnu Loka, the world of Vishnu. And there's a long conversation. So, the lieutenants, the assistants of Vishnu, give a long sermon. This man had uttered the name of God once. That is enough to purge of the sins that he had committed during his later days. So the point is, even if he could practice a little spiritual, even if we do little spiritual practice, sincerely, earnestly, that will somehow remain in our spiritual bank. We may, perhaps sometime in future, may recollect that memory. That memory can be a saving factor. So it is said at the time of death, we are in a totally helpless condition. You cannot be a diplomat. See, in actual normal life, you can smile though you may be having a stomach pain. You can smile at a person whom you hate, whom you may be internally cursing. You can have beautiful smile. You can see diplomats and businessmen. No offense meant, of course. Because the real feeling can be clothed, can be hidden, can be given an artificial coloring. But at the time of death, mind is in a state of total helplessness. So whatever is there within the mind will come out. We can't hide it. So that's why if we practice a little spiritual, some kind of spiritual practices we perform, that will create a memory, a samskara, a tendency within. That tendency may come to the surface at the time of death, along with innumerable unpleasant memories. Some great, good, pleasant memories, spiritually elevating memories also may flash in the mind at the time of death. That will become a saving factor. Now, anybody who surrounds a dying person, if those who surround a dying person can repeat holy names, read from holy books, any holy books, could be Bible, Sermon on the Mount, it could be Upanishads, Gita, Vedas, whatever may be, that will help the dying person. He may not be able to speak, but that will help him to bring back to his mind some spiritual thoughts associated with his own spiritual practices that he may have performed, done in some time in the past. So it will be a great help and blessing to him. That's all. I think so. We have time. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Order.